So about a year ago, I converted my blog comment data persistence to use the UTF-8 MB4 character set in MySQL, which allows me to store emoji glyphs within my comments. But using emoji still isn't super easy, so I wanted to explore providing shortcuts to emojis on my blog. And as a first step, I wanted to see how to take the CodePoint representation for an emoji character and print that as an emoji glyph using JavaScript. So to explore this, I have a list of common emojis, and in my data attribute here, I have the hexadecimal code point that represents that emoji in the particular character set. And you can see some of these are represented by a single code point, some of them are represented by multiple code points. And the idea is when a user clicks on one of these links, I'm going to grab these hexadecimal code points and then use them to render an actual emoji glyph and then append that glyph to this text area. Now, before we look at the JavaScript, let's just take a look at the browser and see what the expectation here is. So here's my text area, here's my list of characters, and if we just look at the elements, you can see we have our hexadecimal characters right there. And let's go ahead and click, and you can see that we get our emoji characters appended to the end of this text area. And in the bottom here, you can see the actual operations that are taking place. So if we look at the smiling face, you can see that the smiling face is represented by two different hexadecimal Unicode characters. We then convert those to decimal, and then we use those decimal code points to render the actual glyph. And for whatever reason, this one doesn't play well with the Chrome console, but other ones do. All right, so let's now take a look at the code and see what's going on. So if we jump down to the bottom, we're going to be using jQuery to simplify some of the interactions here. You see we have our text area reference, we have our list of emoji reference, and we're going to use event delegation. So we're going to capture click events on the list, but then only respond to events that originated from one of our anchor tags with the embedded hexadecimal characters. So when we handle those clicks, we're going to grab the hex value out of our data set. We're going to split it on the space, because if you remember here, some of these are represented by multiple hexadecimal Unicode characters, right? So we're splitting on that space to get an array of these values. At that point, we now have an array of hexadecimal code points. We're going to use those code points to eventually call the fromCodePoint prototype method on the string object, but in order to do that, we're going to convert those hex values into decimal values. So you can see we're going to use the parseInt function with the radix or radii of 16. So we're going to convert this from a base 16 to a base 10. That's going to give us our decimal code points. Now the fromCodePoint function is a variadic function, which means it takes multiple arguments. So it could take, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it will create a string based on this sequence of Unicode characters, of these code points. Now, in order to, normally if I was, say, in a compiled target language, so if I was in something like CodeScript, I would just use the spread operator to spread those code points into this invocation. But because I'm just trying to target the lowest common denominator here, we're going to use the apply function in JavaScript to invoke this function reference using this array of arguments. And the array of arguments in this case is my array of decimal Unicode code points. So that's going to give us the glyph, and then we're just going to go ahead and append this glyph to the end of the text area. And there we go. And we're getting our little emojis. So the idea in the long term is below my comment text area, I want to create some sort of widgetry that provides shortcuts for adding emojis into the comment areas, and that way I don't have to open up the emoji keyboard, which is actually quite a song and a dance on Mac OS. And yeah, it's just a fun little exploration.